So, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining at this time of the day. I welcome you all to this YC tour to IIT Guwahati in collaboration with ESEL IIT Guwahati and IIT G Alumni Association. I am Aniket, the overall coordinator of ESEL IIT Guwahati. ESEL is a student body of startup enthusiasts from the campus. We organize various events, including workshops, webinars, learning sessions, hackathons, competitions, all year around. Our flagship event, Udgam, the e-summit of IIT Guwahati, takes place during January. Let us welcome Michael Siebel, CEO and partner at YC, Tamanna, outreach manager at YC to IIT Guwahati. We have with us founders of YC-backed startups who are alumni of IIT Guwahati. Archit Gupta, founder of ClearTax, a financial technology platform which provides solutions for income tax filing, GST, and mutual fund investments. Ajinkya, he is the founder of Playment, which is a data labeling platform. And Saurabh Nangia, founder of Mesh. Mesh is basically an internal social network for companies that makes it easy for employees to accomplish goals and get timely feedback. Okay. I also welcome Sasank from IIT Guwahati Alumni Association. And now I hand over to Sasank for further intro.
Oh, thanks, Aniket. I think you gave an introduction to pretty much everyone on the host side. Thanks for that. Hey, all the attendees. Thanks a lot for joining in at this time. And also, thanks a lot for Y-Combinator, Michael and Tamanna, along with the main heroes of the day, Archit, Saurabh, and Ajinkya. On behalf of IIT Guwahati Alumni Association, I'm Sasank, and we welcome you all to this session. Looking forward to having a great one and handing it over to Michael. Before that, just a small note to everyone, please turn on your videos if you want it as interactive as possible. And on the initial stages, please keep yourself on mute. And also feel free to drop your questions in the question and answer window or in the chat. Okay. Thanks a lot. And Michael, the dais is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. And I'm happy that you introduced the YC founders as the heroes here, because I agree. And I want to spend most of our time allowing them to share their experience. So at the highest level, to introduce YC, organization that has funded over 2,500 companies over the past 15 years. And some of the most important tenets to YC are: one, you shouldn't have to know investors or be well connected to start a startup. And two, that you shouldn't have to be what we call affectionately, and I'm one of these people, a business guy to start a startup. You don't need an MBA to start a startup. And so YC was really created under this idea that if we have an open application process and if we preference technical founders and founders who are interested in creating great software, a whole bunch of new products will be created that will really make the world benefit. And it's been exciting being a YC founder myself twice, and now helping to run YC and seeing multiple generations of founders go through the program. So with that, I'd like to start with the founders on this call and ask each of them to just very briefly introduce what their companies do. Who wants to go first?
I would say Archit. He's the first YC founder in India. So yeah.
So yeah, hey guys. So yeah, like I think ClearTax had the privilege of being the first India-focused company funded by Y-Combinator, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Feels like I'm alums of two situations. Like one is YC and one is IIT Guwahati, and that's like fantastic to like combine those two here today. So yeah, like ClearTax helps millennials such as yourselves file tax returns, like invest, save, and we help businesses create invoices, like do their taxes, like manage their cash flows, manage money, and like those kind of things. We help entrepreneurs get companies started in India. So if you're registering a company and those kind of things, like we help with that also. So every month we probably help like 500 entrepreneurs get started in India. So that's just something I thought would be fun for this group to know about. With that, to Ajinkya and Saurabh.
Hello, everyone. This is Ajinkya. I am a graduate of IIT G'2013 batch and was a part of YCW17 batch, to be specific. I think about the company, Playment is a data labeling platform for developing highly accurate machine learning models. So we provide label data to power machine learning applications, which in turn work with a high quality for doing their jobs. Now, most of the Playment, we started with something else and became something else after YC. And that was, in my opinion, one of the best pivotal moments in the history of Playment. So we owe a lot to YC overall. And maybe going ahead, I'll share a few of the advices that was shared by Michael with us.
Oh, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. We'll have time for that. Don't worry.
Yeah, going forward. All right. That's from my side. I'll give it up to Mesh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Saurabh, passed out of IIT Guwahati back in 2008. God, I feel old right now. Been over a decade since I moved out of campus. And founder and CEO at Mesh. So was in the last YC batch, YC Summer 20. So Mesh is basically an internal social network for companies that makes it super easy for employees to accomplish their goals and get timely feedback. So it looks like Facebook, and instead of filling the boring HR forms, employees can like and comment on each other's progress on the feed itself. So that's pretty much it.
All right. So let's keep this going. My first question is, at what stage of company were you at when you decided to apply to YC? And why did you decide to apply to YC?
Right. So for us, like we had launched, so we had a product which helped people do their taxes in India, and we were growing quickly. But like what we figured was at that time, and like this is like 2013, 2014 time, the venture capital ecosystem in India was just not there, and like I figured like YC would be a great mentorship system, and I'd read a bunch of essays from Paul Graham, like which I highly recommend to people here, and so I figured like that'd be the right mentorship. The application process was somewhat like fraught with like confusion, in the sense like YC at that time did not have like a big international program. But what I realized is YC had funded for the first time a Brazilian company in the previous batch. So I figured like, okay, maybe there's an opening here. So then I applied, and the other part was like, which was funny at the time, and YC has since fixed it. They used to only give like $1,200 for flights, and that was like domestic flights, so it was fine. Like if three founders had to spend for that, and we were flying international, so like we had to like spend our own money, and we were bootstrapped till that point. So that was like that was a big decision to whether fly to YC, to meet YC or not. But because like we were out of pocket like with $3,000, and we had to like YC would only give us $1,200 if three founders had to fly to the Bay Area. But like I think it was totally worth it, and I would say like ClearTax would not exist if not for YC. So I think that's my story, and I think
I think my story starts with Archit, the YC journey. The stage of the company, we were around 15 people in the company. We launched our product. It was a B2B crowdsourcing app for labeling data. So we served e-commerce customers, every major e-commerce companies, including ShopClues, Paytm, Flipkart, Myntra was our customer at that time. And what we essentially wanted to do is like, we have found some market fit to our product in India. Can we make it global as a B2B company? And I went to US. I got 0 customers that time. And on a Saturday night, I visited Archit that what should I do, man? Like, I'm not able to crack even a single cell globally. We don't have any brand image or something like that. And Archit just forced me to apply for YC. Also the fact that we had applied pre-product to YC and we didn't make it. But after a little bit of traction, I think our application was a little more stronger. The story was a little more real. And with Archit's push, we applied and we got into YC. And then we came out as a totally different company, only for the good.
When we applied to YC, we were slightly beyond idea, had a basic version of just the wireframes and a bare minimum MVP in place. But we didn't have any customers. We got some nods from people that seems like an interesting product. If you go ahead and build it, we might use it. So we were way early compared to ClearTax and compared to Playment. Why did we apply to YC? So this was also the second time we were applying to YC. So I'm a third time entrepreneur. The first time I applied was back in 2012, December. That was for another company targeting mantra. Turned out to be fairly good journey in the first company, learned a lot. But there was this thing that we didn't get into YC that time. We were based out of Mountain View at that moment. YC didn't happen. Other things happened with the company. So this time when we were starting up, COVID had just hit at that point of time. We were fairly well connected in the VC network in India. Having run a company and exited one, most VCs know you. But everyone knows that whenever there's uncertainty in the market, Indian investors tend to behave in a slightly different way. So we were like, YC is there, let's go ahead with the application. If we get there, nothing like that. YC happened, everything worked out fairly well for us so far.
So a lot of people have misconceptions of what YC is like. And, you know, either the first week or the first month of the program, they realize it's very different from what they expected. I'd like each of you to just share kind of one of the things that you thought YC was going to be like, where you learned it wasn't this way at all. Whichever one of you wants to start, I know this is I haven't prepped any of you on these questions, so whoever wants to kick it off, feel free.
We can do round robin in the reverse order now. Saurabh, go first.
Nice for putting me on the spot. Okay, so one thing, so this is the second time we were going through an accelerator after a gap of 7 years. And we always had this image that accelerators help you raise money. And a lot of you will also carry that conception or misconception in your mind at this point of time. But the key thing which we realized when we got into YC is that even after running a company, there are so many points where we tend to go wrong. And when you talk with the group partners, they have worked with so many companies in the past. Each one has at least top 2,000 companies, some of them successful, some of them did something wrong and shut down, that they ask you the right questions so that they make you answer the point which you were looking for. It's not that they'll go ahead and give you the right answer and you know, okay, what you're supposed to do in your company. So that thought process, thinking from the first principles, whenever you are approaching any particular problem within your company, I think that was the biggest value add in YC that happened in the first month for us, where Michael was a guy, in fact, that we used to talk to. And he has this knack of asking you the questions and helping you come to the solution which is already there in your head. And it just seems like great, because it's like you aren't giving someone the fish, you are teaching a person how to go ahead and fish himself. So they're helping you learn and answer whatever you want in future. So that was a big value add for me.
For us, I think we considered YC that there will be office hours and people will be teaching us how to run your company, how to start a startup, which is like a very common misconception about incubators. And we were in the same boat. And we will be told that do this, do that. So we entered with a completely wrong notion, actually. And then we, in the very first week, we realized that it's very hands-off. And so there are basic principles, like there are things like vertebrae and many other things like that, which maintain the core of clarity of thought for your own company, which triggers the clarity of thought for your own company. That's what YC is about. So basically, it became like whenever we needed advice, we got advice. Whenever we asked questions, we got answers. And whenever we needed connections, we had a platform where we could post some request and we got connections. So unlike to the idea that they will handhold you to every stage, it's a platform where you can make the best out of. Is, I would say, the change in my expectations, what we got, and definitely the orbit of people who are around you. We found our first few customers for the new platform within the YC within the YC batch itself. So this is something that we didn't expect, and that was the boost for the demo day and around that time, if that's helpful.
Yeah, so I think Saurabh and Ajinkya talked about what was very interesting in the YC platform itself. The other thing which I would mention about YC, which was very interesting to me and like a big value addition, is like YC has cohorts, and you meet like some of the smartest founders on the planet, and they become like your friends, and they sort of help you, and that becomes an ecosystem and community. So like YC is not like purely like this accelerator, if you will, like it's also like this community. So the community is what creates value. I think like sustained value even after like YC finishes. So I think it does a few things, right? It first like adds legitimacy to your startup, like a little bit when you're bootstrapped, or you're like, if it's the first capital in. The second part, it does like it puts you in a room of like very ambitious founders, which is fantastic, because like then you sort of recalibrate all your expectations and recalibrate like what the world should look like, and like that leads to like you thinking very big, and like you understanding like all big things started very small, and you can see like various founders at different spectrums, and like obviously all the YC partners etc. are incredibly helpful. But I feel like the community aspect of it, like I cannot underscore enough, which was like coming out of YC, like one of the things which I didn't think about going in.
You know, I'm so happy you brought up community. One of the things that Paul Graham used to say when he opened a batch was that you're going to meet great friends, and there might even be people in your batch who become groomsmen or bridesmaids in your wedding. And I remember him saying that to me, and I remember thinking, that's probably not true. And I got married 5 years ago. Actually 5 years ago tomorrow. Tomorrow's gonna be a 5-year anniversary. And 4 out of my 5 groomsmen were YC alumni. And so he was exactly right. Now I did YC a little younger than a lot of people nowadays. I was 23, but that community part's really understated and not well understood. Okay, so here's my next question. Each of you did YC during very different times. And so, you know, in one situation, there was fear about, do we even fund international companies at all? Clearly, by the time Playment came in, we got a little better at that. And then with Mesh, it was a remote program. You didn't have to fly anywhere. We've never met in person. So share a little bit about kind of what the actual experience of doing YC was for each of you. where were you living? How were you dealing with being remote or not remote? What was the experience like?
Yeah, so I'll go because it'll then follow a chronology. So
Yes.
we did YC in 2014, right? Like, and then so it's like for us, like for me, it was somewhat easier. Like I had worked in the Bay Area prior to moving to India to start ClearTax, right? So I knew what like the Mountain View looked like or what have you. I quickly landed, rented a place, those kind of things. So that was like relatively frictionless. We just like it was like we furnished the house, we just like got to work, and we were like very, very intense. And that's the part of YC, right? Like you really transform your company in 3 months, and like it's sort of incredible going in like that you can transform your company in 3 months, but you actually end up doing that. The other part is like whether you're like a 21-year-old or a 19-year-old or like a 40-year-old, like YC treats you like an adult, like, and treats you like you have to run your own startup. Like the first thing I think I remember Paul Graham saying is like if you want to run your startup off a cliff, we will let you. You can like you can destroy your own startup. You can make your own startup. It's your like you're a grown up. So I think like that's like pretty useful. And like at that time it was kind of crazy for us because we had our customers in India. So we actually like it was very weird for us. We took 14 flights between us, like us three co-founders, like flying back and forth to India. So it's kind of crazy. Like it was because our customers were here, right? And like we were like we were like very clear that okay, we need to focus on doing the business, and like we'll figure out like how YC happens within this dance. So I think like that was fun. I think it was crazy. We were the only people who sometimes did not know like people and so on and so forth. It was kind of crazy, but like a lot of fun. I think like uh, some of the things I remember pretty distinctly are the Tuesday dinners, like which were fantastic. Like just meeting a lot of folks because I think they were fantastic founders. And so like I used to learn a lot, and that was like super fun. And like the other part was like I remember very distinctly like how some of the partners helped us like understand like our customer funnels, understand like how to design products. That sometimes like as basic as that. Like there were like a lot of discussions with like our group partners and partners. That's the concept in YC. Like you'll be assigned like a kind of a mentor, like which is typically a YC partner, and they'll help you if you have a problem. So if we used to like run into issues, we used to go talk to our partner and like so that was really valuable. At the end, like it was a blur. Like it really goes very fast. Like I don't remember like the 3 months. Like it's like it was like over like this. So I mean, it goes like a blur, and there's a concept of demo day where you meet investors and stuff like that. Post that also, YC was super helpful. So I can delve deep, but like I think the thing was like we were the first India company. So I think like I think we got like a lot of extra help. I would say that. So that was like a lot of fun. So.
For us, I think I'm
well,
from.
First, did we pay for your flights, or did you have to spend money too?
No, you paid for our flights.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, yes, because it was winter 17. I guess there were 7 Indian companies in our batch, and a lot more interviews than the companies who were accepted as well. So I think the process was pretty much standard. We didn't have any hiccup or go through something like pay from the pocket or something like that. We knew from previous experiences from Misho and ClearTax like what we need to do when we go there and what we need to focus and specifically not focus on, and things like stay in Mountain View and not in SF to party. So like those basics don'ts were covered and do's were more of discovered while we were in YC. So so for us, like I think our major goal to get into YC was find international customers, and we needed some brand attached to us who will reply to our emails. So I think one of the key skills that we developed staying there was how to do B2B sales and run a funnel at a crazy rate so that you can get replies from the customers for whatever idea you are trying to build on. And then I guess so that was the fundamental thing. We came as ex product managers from Flipkart, and we thought that if we build a great product, it will sell for itself. And we really underestimated the sales part of it. But we were asked a lot of hard questions about what's your differentiation, why would like somebody buy your product for a long time, and those answers like helped us figure out our unique selling proposition, and then things moved on from there. Also, like our perspective of focusing on so solving for e-commerce in their cataloging via data labeling was a very old school idea and was to be automated by AI itself. So talking to the other YC founders in the batch, as well as the partners, told us that build something for the future rather than something that has been solved, or there are alternate solutions which are not so efficient. Don't optimize for small efficiencies, but take the lead for the bigger ones. So we took a bet to from being, so we entered YC as mechanical Turk for data labeling and came out as data labeling platform for machine learning applications. And that just simplified all the thought process, the way we positioned ourselves. I think these two parts, like one is the sales and the right proposition and differentiation of the company, came to us after thinking hard when pushed by the partners as well as other founders.
I think we were the first fully remote YC batch. So I had a phenomenal time in it. If during COVID we didn't have
flights,
we didn't have to fly, we saved a lot of money in terms of flights, in terms of rent in Mountain View, in terms of moving our base all the way across the continent. More money basically means more money for your business, and you can focus more on it. But yeah, we were the first remote batch, and we were lucky to have YC, especially during COVID, because there was this lockdown in India at that point of time, where people were not even stepping out of their homes and meeting their co-founders or even meeting the rest of the team members, whatever you may have. So at least when you get the strong community that even Archit was alluding to in the previous question, when you get the strong YC community with whom you can talk with, it's not that you'll ever feel like there's a second or a minute you are missing not meeting others and your social life has completely ended. And all of a sudden we were living in 2 different time zones. So that's something which we learned that, oh, we can function for more than 12 hours in the day. So we can work even longer. The entire day we used to work on the startups. At night around 9 o'clock, we usually have this YC Tuesday and Thursday dinners, which rather became Tuesday, Thursday breakfast sessions in the valley and dinners for us. And we used to get a chance to talk with a lot of these entrepreneurs whom you always see and aspire to be. Imagine meeting people from Airbnb, Stripe, whoever you have, and they're coming and they're giving candid conversations with regards to their growth, what worked, what didn't work. And when you hear those, you're like, oh, these people are human. They did the same mistakes which we guys are doing right now. So it's fine. It's just like you have to learn and you have to keep on sticking with it and giving it your best on that particular front. So we loved our remote batch, and especially in our case, it was super helpful because we didn't have to move countries at all in that particular front. You don't think we missed out on anything? In fact, we could do more sales because if we were in Mountain View, the Caltrain and the public transport in California is terrible. So you spend the entire day going from Mountain View to SF to do maybe 1 sales in a day. But right now we could do back-to-back Zoom calls. And the beauty of it was in the night we were selling to US, in the morning we were selling to Indian customers. So that helped us function better. And I think geography is history at this particular point, and COVID made things easier.
So we have a largely college audience. I'd love you all to take a step back and talk a little bit about what you were doing during college. Were you working on startups? Did you think you would do startups? Did you even really understand the startup world at all? And what do you, in hindsight, kind of, what do you think are the most important things you got out of school? And I want to frame this, and I don't know if you'll have this experience, other people have the experience, but as I've talked to college students more and more nowadays, it seems as though startups are way more popular than they were when I was doing school. And so, you know, not every, but most of the college kids I talk to, they're working on some startup on the side or yada, yada, yada. And they were infinitely more sophisticated about the startup world than I was. And I'd love to kind of understand how sophisticated you three were about the startup world when you were going through college.
Right. So I think like at that time, like if I look back, I'm a 2006 grad, so I probably like look like an old man to these these young college kids at this point. But like at that time, like there wasn't such a rich startup ecosystem and startup culture, right? Like it was really nascent. Like so, the fun part was like Google used to be a startup at that time, and there was no Facebook. I mean, in that sense, like, and it was like a cool thing to work at Google. So the funny part was like startups weren't cool, but I thought like I'll build a company. It was very clear even when I was an undergrad. So I think the second part was like when I reached grad school, which was in the US, like the only thing I understood were Paul Graham essays, like which were like, okay, this is what like startups look like, and like there was YC had done like its first edition or second edition of Startup School. They're actually like I'd asked to come and they had said yes, but like couldn't fly out to the Bay Area. But now Startup School is remote, so it's pretty awesome. So I think like at that time, like except folks who were in the Bay Area, like I think like it was very difficult to understand startups and like have access or like think about like how to start a company. So I feel like a lot's changed since then. Obviously, Michael touched upon it, but at that time, like there was no ecosystem and many things were unknown. So I think like it's a much more fantastic time to build a company, and there's so many resources in AWS, so and YC. So I mean, there's building blocks for building a company now. But when I look back, like I think some of the awesome things were like at least Guwahati had a very good computer science program, and I think being a programmer added like a lot of value because I built the first version of ClearTax alone, like almost like with my co-founders, like we wrote every single line of code, and we didn't have like any employees, or we couldn't afford, we were bootstrapped. So so that was fantastic. Like, so I think that would be the part, like you can potentially meet your co-founders, like potential co-founders, your smartest friend actually, who was your closest friend. And then the second one would be like learning to code, I guess. Two big things I remember from school.
I have a story completely opposite to what you said. I never ever dreamt of being.
Hey, Ajinkya, your voice is not right.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, something changed. I'm not sure. Something just changed with your audio.
Why don't you guys go ahead and I'll tell you the problem.
Great.
Sure. So when we were graduating out of college, it was back in 2008. One of my very close friends started Tea Halt, which is basically his dad used to joke, I knew his dad also, that my kid passed out of IIT and he started a tea stall on the roadside. That's how startups were seen in India. And in fact, Nauguri is also a close friend, and he joined Flipkart, which was just selling books. He was the 10th employee at that time, later became the CDO at Flipkart. And it was the same thing, that my kid has gone to sell books at this point of time. That's how startups were perceived by parents in India. And there was a lot of this pseudo pressure kind of a thing from a lot of parents on their kids when they're graduating, that they have to go ahead and take a job and things like that. So startups weren't a whole lot popular. I think for me, that changed again in my grad school. So I had gone to Illinois, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Even at that point, when I was there, the very first thing that started clicking well with me was that if you see someone has a problem, you can go ahead and build a solution for it. And the feeling which you get when these people use it, it's next level. Entrepreneurship will not make you money. It will not give you a fancy life on that particular front. It is that other spark which you get inside you, that what you're building is getting used by people out there. That's the reason why you should go ahead and become an entrepreneur. So in grad school itself, started working on one of the things that was supposedly the most fuel efficient path between two locations. But I was on a research grant and they were sponsoring my PhD. So didn't have the IP rights on that particular front. So I had to drop that idea. And I'm like, PhD is not worth it. Time to go get into industry, try to see more problems on that front. So moved out of grad school and just joined Amazon, worked on recommendations. And I think I tried at least 4 or 5 things in those 3 years itself when I was at Amazon, trying to figure out what I want to do. And then beyond a point, decided, okay, it's time to move back to India, start working on something. If I keep on daylighting, you'll not be able to focus on what you want to build. And that's how I started on my first venture at that point of time. And back in school, I would agree with Archit, the best thing you can do right now is expand your network. Your batchmates are the people who you'll be the closest to and who will stand by you whenever shit hits the ceiling. Like startup is not all hunky-dory. It's not going to be a smooth ride. It's a roller coaster. Everyone says that. You'll be like, why is he telling me the same thing again and again? Because you'll have those ups and downs. You need a friend who has been with you for a while. I've known both of my co-founders for over a decade. And the kind of things we go through every second month, every third month, there's something or the other. We are super thick. We have been the best men at each other's wedding. All 3 of us are married. And we love the fact that there was COVID this time, so we didn't have to fly and leave our wives back, to be very honest. But it's very important that you get your support system in place. These friends, they may not work with you also, but they will be your support system. You can call them anytime. You can discuss whatever you want with them. And even you might have the potential co-founders along with you, or some of your batchmates might be building the next unicorns or decacorns out there, and you might go ahead and work with them in future. So leverage your time right now, build friendships, and don't attach a motive behind that friendship. Okay, if this guy is smart, only then I'll be his friend. Be friends with whoever you click well with.
Can you all hear me better? Okay, all right, cool. For my story, I think I never wanted to start a business because I thought that's too much of work. And I actually didn't respect people who start their companies inside campus when I was in college. Like, I'm being very frank to help you guys. Because I thought, like, what will it lead to? And eventually you're going to get out of college and what is it about, right? And there were people who started delivery companies for pizza delivery in campus, people who started podcasts inside with alumni inside the campus, and all of that. And I wanted to do my PhD in genetics and follow the same path. But then when I did my internship in genetics under a Nobel laureate, I realized that's the ultimate thing that one can be in this space is that person. And I didn't want to be that as well. So basically, situationally, I fell into just taking up a job at Flipkart. And then I really enjoyed for the first time building stuff in Flipkart while they were building their marketplace. And that is where I understood the value of business, what it can create for yourself and you can create for others in the ecosystem, how important that is. And that's when we decided that we want to start our own company after working 2 years at Flipkart. From a college standpoint, I would say that don't be under the impression that I was in. Like, I was stupid to think that way. I think if, as Archit and Saurabh said, that build your network. I think the way to build your network is to be involved. So you got to be involved in something, be it your tech niche or Manthan or whatever, like build those friendships. Even if you start your own company, you will need that friend of yours who is an investment banker 5 years down the lane. You will need the friend of yours who is a marketing genius in some space. And they should be, if they are one call away, that solves a lot of problem for you in the future. So it's like a good good thing to do early in the college. So that's for sure. And I think doing things, I guess even something will not lead to anything while you're in Guwahati with that small city and market size, does not mean that you don't have anything to gain from it. I think the effort counts. At least you can avoid some mistakes that you will do in future. So I think taking that initiative is paramount, and be it not related to startup, but like creating something together and doing something together with the team, with ideas and stuff like that. I think that's the real foundation of eventually starting a company. After all, as we all founders say, that running a company early stage is just arranging a fest. Just the fest lasts forever, and it just you just do the technique and the alcharinga all day, all night long, and that's what eventually it is. So I would just add on to that.
So I think there was one question in the chat that I'd like to address personally, which is, should I think about the YC batch remote, or should I think about doing YC in person? I think that a lot of founders, their base concept of what YC is based on university. And I think that most universities have been around for a while. They're not very tech savvy. And it's very easy to think that a university going from in-person to remote is not going to operate very well, or remote back to in-person is not going to operate really well. Universities are kind of large and slow. I think that you should not apply that analogy to YC. YC is only 50 people run all of YC, and half of us were former founders. 20% of us are software engineers. And so every single time we admit a batch, we ask ourselves how to give that batch the best experience, whether it's an in-person batch, whether it's a remote batch. Every single batch, we take the feedback from the previous batches and try to figure out how to make that batch better. So trying to time YC is not really something I would suggest. I will tell you that there probably will be no batch exactly the same as the Playment, Mesh, and ClearTax batch ever again, right? Because YC changes all the time. We always are learning, we're always improving, we're always growing. And, in the future, we've really talked about what are the lessons we're going to learn from this remote batch that we're going to apply. There is at least a 50% chance that we never do a fully in-person batch ever again. And so I really want you to take your mindset of what a university does and remove it. Think of YC as a product, like as a software product, right? You would expect the software product to get better over time. You would expect the software product to change over time. You would expect the software product to respond to what's going on in the world. And that's exactly what we do at YC. So don't think about it as a university. And I think that you're going to be much better served. All right. We're in our last 10 minutes. I'm sure a number of you, I'm sure all three of you, sorry, are pitched by early stage founders or are emailed by early stage founders. And I guess the thing that I would love you to communicate last is, if you were going to give an early stage founder just one piece of advice, that's it, just one. what do you think it would be? And I want you to be a little bit less obvious. You know, don't just copy the standard YC bullshit. You know, I want you to think about it, one, in the context of what do you see people getting wrong? And two, I'd like to put in the context of India specifically. And I want y'all to think a little bit about how the next 10 years and 15 years of the Indian tech ecosystem are going to be very different than the last 10 to 15 years. And I'll give you, all three of you, about 2 minutes to think. For me, I don't know as much about the Indian ecosystem as I should, and I learned through the founders that we fund. And I think one of the things that I find obvious is that India is going through this magical period of time right now. And you know, the next 50 years is going to have radical changes. And a lot of the ways things used to work, they're not going to work that way anymore. And I think that's the most exciting point to be building a business inside of a country. Now, unfortunately, I think that there are some investors in India who are more Western focused, who have less faith in how much India is going to change. And I always find that funny because YC, we invest all over the world. A typical batch now is 30 to 50% international. And how do I phrase this? I don't think America is as exciting. I think that in general in America, we take too many things for granted. Too many things are kind of stuck in status quo. You know, and I was having this conversation with my father the other day. Somehow India has figured out how to bring everyone into the electronic money world and give everyone a bank account. In America, we tried through our post office to give everyone an email address, and we couldn't pull it off. And so the idea that America is the like shining example and that like America is the thing that's always going to be better than everyone else, I just find laughable, because it's so clear that so many countries around the world are going to take what America did, learn from it, and do it better. And so with that context, I'd love the three of you to kind of offer your individual pieces of advice to these founders and future founders, I would say. Who's going first?
I was saying Archit isn't unmuting his mic, so he's not going first. Okay, I'll take this one. The one piece of advice which I have for all startup founders is that talk to your customers from day one. Quite often, a lot of young stage startups that I'm talking with, they have an idea in their mind that, oh, if we build this, this will happen and customers will love it. And they start building it in the hopes that there are a lot of people out there who will just go ahead and love whatever idea they have in the mind. Start talking with them from day one itself. You don't need to sell to them, but the closer you are to the customer, the better you'll be able to understand their problem, the better you'll be able to build a product which will actually solve someone's problem out there. A lot of times these problems are there in our head. So quite often people come up with these ideas which seem very fancy, especially the moment we are out of college, we are passionate about some tech space and we just go ahead and want to build an idea in that tech space. Will it solve the problem for someone? We don't know. We are just passionate about that space. I have done a similar mistake right out of college. So that's one advice which I give most people on that front. Talk to your customers from day one, understand their pain points, and you need not have the perfect product, but keep your customers close, keep on taking feedback from them, irrespective of whatever you're building. The second question which Michael had, what's the key thing about India in the next 5-10 years? The point that we guys are at least banking on also is by 2025, India will have at least 100 unicorns. As of today, India itself has around 30 unicorns. In the next 4 years, we'll have 100. And if you see in the next decade, that might be around 300 to 500. And hopefully some of those founders are sitting right here in this particular call itself. So if there are going to be these many unicorns out there, they will need new age better platforms to use on whatever front it is. So if you're building a B2B company in India itself, you will have a lot of companies who are coming up who will need this new age platforms to use on that front. On the B2C side, every one of you knows that what Geo has done, how many people have already come online. You're looking at 500 million plus people online at this point of time. So whenever you're trying to solve a problem for them, think about their problem instead of trying to see what worked well in US, what worked well in China, and copying the equivalent out here. Think from the first principle. That's one key takeaway which I took from YC in the very first month itself. So whenever you start thinking from the basics itself, you will get the answer on that particular front. So that's my key take on both the questions.
Right. I'll go. Archit?
Ajinkya, go for it.
Okay, all right. I think I'll give a very India-focused advice from my point of view. I think a lot of fundamentals like talk to your customers and don't build for scaling from day one, and all of those things are very well laid down by PG's essays and YC teachings. In India, I think we have a very if you are an Indian founder building for Indian customers, the markets are really finicky. The funding conditions are not as smooth as you would have in US. So my single advice would be start with a mindset to commit for 10 years. Think like you're entering a PhD program, which is even longer than that, and start with that mindset, because we are not there yet where we can expect a Facebook turning out like a completely digital world changing unicorn hasn't been there yet. And I think it's still far away, given we are not so mature startup ecosystem with people, optimism, investors around. I would say commit for 10 years and start with that mindset, rather than my batchmate just started his company, they raised their Series A. I would also like to start. I think we culturally are so much more wired to look at our neighbors from our upbringing point of view, and startups are not built by looking at your neighbors. I think they are pure persistence and belief. So just commit for 10 years, and then if you are ready to commit for 10 years, then start. And I think everybody here is like quite intelligent to make it to IIT and all, and we'll figure out the problems following the principles laid down. So that's my single most advice. And then from an India perspective, I think that we ourselves are in a B2B space. I think we are a very deep tech startup, which are very rare in India to sell to global customers. And we have customers like BMW, Ford, Samsung buying our technology, and we have raised small amount of money and we are profitable. So I think like software is key to Indian economy. We have skipped the manufacturing cycle like China. So I think a lot of software companies will be built from India. There is a lot of talent coming back and being grown here. So the fundamental, I see building software companies as a key driver for the Indian economy boost, and a lot of things will happen here. In fact, you would see a trend of all the US companies having an Indian dev center here in Bangalore or Hyderabad or something like that. So that's a key trend. So I personally feel that I can commit to building software for the rest of my life. And I think that's our way to make it to the top 3 economies in the world, just from the market conditions. And I have so much belief in the system that no matter even the smallest of the software that you would design, there would be a lot of customers for it. You would be solving some great pain points there. So don't feel like shortened or be scared by Amazon or Google that they will build it. If it's not in their top 10 priorities, you will still make your buck somewhere. And that would be a great experience to build something. So I would just bet really heavy on software, and that's just from my perspective.
Right. So I think like since we build only for India and our customers are in India, like I think I had like a lot of this question triggered a lot of thoughts in my head, because like I agree with Michael, like India is like a crazy amazing country, and like the kind of things we get to do here in India, like it's very interesting. But like overall, like I think I'll step back and like talk about a few things. I first want to talk about what like, and I'm going for the non-obvious advice, as Michael said, so I'll not try to go for the obvious thing. So first thing I'll go talk about, like, otherwise I just repeat what Saurabh said, like talk to your customers. Like that's like the stupidest obvious advice, like, which is like, and every founder makes a mistake on that, so don't do that. So, but like I think like the first thing I want to talk about is like tech itself, and like technology, and like how software is eating the world, and Mark Andreessen talks about it a lot. And like I think like technology compounding is happening in the world, and it will happen even more rapidly because infrastructure layer is happening. People are working on the infrastructure, people are working on second layer, third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer of software globally. And so what you're seeing is like, when people will look back 200 years or 100 years from now, is like when we look back on the industrial revolution, remember the steam engine, which led to other things, and so on and so forth. Like people will talk about like this our generation, because when you're going through the revolution, you don't know it, like actually. And since software is virtual, industrial revolution, you can actually see it. Like you could see like the locomotive going faster, you could see like train tracks, and like you could see all of that, right? But when we split the atom, you actually can't see it. Very few people see it. The software is like that. So we are going through software revolution globally right now. So that is the part which every single person in this room has to realize, that like we are going through software revolution. Now in that, like there's big tech like FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Google, etc., which have accumulated a lot of power. And this happens every time a very, very big revolution happens, right? Standard Oil in this United States, and so on and so forth. You have monopolies which get built, and so on. But the world disrupts and changes very fast. And like the right thing to do, as Ajinkya said, if you are interested in software, is to be in software. If you're interested in other technologies, like I can't talk about like in our batch, there were companies which were doing nuclear fusion at YC. They were doing like quantum computing, and they were like, some people were sequencing the genome, some people were working. So they were like biotech startups, and they were like, and CRISPR and other things. Like if there are biotech folks here, like CRISPR and other things may be very interesting. But I do software, so I understand software. So software is like, will be seen 50 years or 100 years from now, like as like, oh, there was an industrial revolution, there was a software revolution. So that's what's happening right now. So that's what we are in the middle of. And if you get to be part of that story, either you work at one of these companies or you build one, right? And like you're here, so you want to build one. There's a lot of space because that's the nature of software. Like people are looking for like next generation of human thought, human innovation, human imagination. And we've put a Unix computer in everybody's pocket, right? Like which Saurabh just talked about, right? Like you've just put a Unix computer and a connection to the internet to everybody. So I would put two frames to everybody. Like like if I had to like just, one is like, and I'm building on what Ajinkya said, like to a degree, and what Saurabh said, but like this one is like somewhat non-obvious, but very important. Like you can build, if you set your mind to it, and you have the right, if you build, like you have the right co-founders, you can build anything for any person across the world. There are app stores which reach every human being on this planet, who can afford a smartphone. Like, so access is unprecedented. Like if you have a good idea, like, and the reach is available within this country or beyond. The second part is like, you don't need to only build for India. You can build for the world. And that's what Ajinkya was talking about, like for a few seconds, like we have the lowest cost of labor across the world for building software. So how can you leverage that theoretically? Like, is something like you can think about, like, because but like we don't have the ecosystem like the Bay Area does, but we'll soon have it, like in 10 years, as Michael talks about it, right? Because like Ajinkya came from Flipkart. We have 3 alums from ClearTax who are YC founders now, right? Like, so the ecosystem is building. Product managers are showing up, engineering managers, engineers are showing up. Like, some of you guys will go on to build magical companies. So I think those would be my 2 non-obvious advice. Like, we are in the midst of a software revolution, like just like the industrial revolution, and software is going to eat the world, and it's completely not understood by everybody who's inside it. Actually, like if I can tell you, like Michael underestimates like how deep that is. I underestimate how deep that is. It's that real. Like it's compounding. Like it's exponential. Like it's an exponential curve of like how everything we touch will be software. So then you have global app stores, Apple and Google ecosystems reaching every human being who can afford a phone, having a smartphone. These 2 aspects completely change everything, which was not there 10 years ago. When I graduated, it was not there. Like, when Ajinkya graduated, he graduated to this world, and you will graduate into like a world which is even more like on that. Now there will be monopolies, and like you guys have to innovate to get past these monopolies, like these gatekeepers, if you will. And Microsoft was like that in the early 98, 2000, and that was like 5% of the software revolution, right? Like literally 5%. So like, I just want to tell everybody, like my non-obvious advice is like, if you want to build a software company, or like a software startup, or like a consumer startup, which is like digitally powered or what have you, this is the best damn time in the history of, like, you can reach 4 billion people with a good idea. Like that's what WhatsApp is, right? Like I'll tell a funny story during YC. Like, so YC, I used to like write code, talk to customers. Like that's what YC like says. Like, and then YC, like Paul Graham actually said, like he came in and like everybody should get exercise. So that was funny. And like he used to talk about like, don't burn out, like go work out, dude, go do something. So I used to play Ultimate Frisbee, and then I used to go play Ultimate Frisbee in Palo Alto. I used to bike and play Ultimate Frisbee every day. And so I used to play with the founders of WhatsApp, and they just sold WhatsApp for $20 billion to Facebook. And these guys were like, just like regular guys, like they just like throw a disc around, and like it was fantastic. And they would nobody cared who these guys were, like, and so. But what I was getting at is like, they were like just 30 people at WhatsApp, which built a product which went to 6 billion people, right? Like 4 billion people. Everybody in India uses WhatsApp, right? Like, so that is the opportunity. Like, and I want to tell everybody here, like, that you can build that. You can potentially build something which will change the planet, change the way we do work. So like, think to that level and think with that level of ambition. That's what you're here on, like in this planet, to have fun, right? Like that kind of. So I think like that would be my biggest non-obvious advice.
Archit, I think you nailed it, and you brought us home. With that, I'm sure everyone's tired. I hope you all have a great night. And my email address is just michael@Y-Combinator.com. I try to reply to all emails. Feel free to mention that we met at this event, and I will try to get back to you. Thank you very much. It was great seeing you guys, and it was great seeing everyone on the call. I'll see y'all later.
Once again, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay, everyone.
It was a great session.